This is a Faith and Confidence. It's the 35th class. We hope to finish by 60. And it's taught every Monday, sort of a moving target with the time, but around 12. Depends on a few factors. And if you want to watch the full series, it's on patreon.com/mgenuth, MGENUTH. Okay, so I was just starting to say that in today's Tanya, he mentions, actually it's tomorrow's Tanya, he mentions an incredible wording which always has to get people to it causes so much tension in people, this wording. It causes a lot of tension in me, so I guess.
So what
You need to say it.
The wording is
Are we tense?
that all of the halacha was given to Moshe, all the Gemara. He says this, it's mamish a quote from tomorrow's Tanya in Kuntra Sacharon. He says, all of the Talmud was given to Moshe at Sinai. And when you hear that, so if you're a modern academic, you're like, you don't want to even hear it. You can't hear it. If you're a little bit critical, so you don't know what to do with it. But the meaning is so simple, it just has to be taught that that's what the meaning is. The meaning is, what do they say the meaning is there?
Is this it? In any event, it does exist, if not in Klipa, then at least keeping in mind the distinction between the sacred everything and the supreme wisdom that issued and descended in this detail to Moshe at Sinai.
Right. Moshe doesn't say there, right? In the Hebrew.
Then it says right after, whatever teaching any seasoned student will one
Right.
day innovate.
So it's based on that statement from the Talmud that whatever will be taught by a seasoned student or a Talmid Vatik, which equals Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, his famous gematria, Talmid Vatik. So whatever will be taught is something that was given to Moshe at Sinai. So in the Tanya it doesn't quote the part with Moshe. I believe he just says it's from Sinai. The entire Talmud is from Sinai. That's the exact quote. But the Talmud definitely says that everything that was taught by somebody who's called a Rebbe in the Talmud was given to Moshe at Sinai. And this, it's gotta leave you like, how do you even begin to understand that? Unless you understand that Sinai is not a specific point in time and space. The moment you understand that Sinai represents something that is eternal, it's an eternal state of being connected to God. It always exists. You can access this point in any age. Avraham accessed that point, except he accessed it the way that he accessed it, which was with a separation still between that point and our mundane reality. But by the Chidush was that when Moshe Rabbeinu and we stood before Mount Sinai, there became a connection, a unification between the higher realms and the lower realms. And from that day on, because it happened at Sinai, it's been called Sinai. This is the place where the supernal connects with the mundane. So this is a statement about the sages. It's not a statement about history. That anything that any of the sages, somebody who's given the title of a Rebbe in the Talmud, anything that they say, they said from Sinai. They said from that connection between the supernal and the mundane. It's an ongoing, it's always there. It's almost like a gateway, if you want, between the higher realms and the lower realms. And it's a statement about how eternal is the thing that this person said. Is it something that was said just for that generation? There are many sayings like that. There's a lot of halacha that's like that. Or does this have eternal validity because it takes its validity from a higher place? It's not saying that Moshe Rabbeinu heard all these things. It's saying that Moshe Rabbeinu also accessed that point, except Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who was responsible for bringing them together, the supernal and the mundane. That's the first mimer that the Rebbe started with, Bati Legani, where he explains that 7 generations pushed the Shekhinah up, They created a separation between the mundane and the supernal. And 7 generations from Avram until Moshe, who's the 7th generation, brought the Shekhinah back down. So when we say Sinai, what we mean to say is that moment when Moshe Rabbeinu connected fully the supernal with the mundane. From that moment on, anybody who's immersed in the Torah of Moshe can access that point of connection between the worlds. And so if you say about somebody who's a Talmid Vatik, he's a seasoned student, what you're saying is that he's accessed the Sinai that Moshe Rabbeinu accessed, that Moshe Rabbeinu put together. So it's not a historical statement. And these things, you have to understand them in context. People don't understand them in context, and they say such nonsense. I'm not talking about the Frum Yidden who believe it, and it's good to believe Pshat. Okay, believe in Pshat. No problem. I'm talking about the people who are critical, and they don't understand what this means to begin with. And they say the way that the masses understand it, that's what it means. No, the way the masses understand it is because they have simple faith. And that's fine. But the way that a person who has critical thinking has to approach this, and Kabbalah and Chassidus is all very critical thinking, has to say that we're not talking about a historical event called Sinai. We're talking about the fact that people who are able to be included, their sayings and their teachings are able to be included in the Talmud, they're accessing that point, that spiritual point of a connection between the higher and lower realms. Okay, so with that in mind, we turn back to chapter 5 of our article, and we already explained that really bitachon, confidence, trust, whether it be trust in Hashem, trust in myself, active confidence, passive confidence, all these, says the Zohar, they need, or they take their strength, they take their energy from our faculty of Yesod, of foundation.
What takes the strength? All these what? What do you...
All aspects of confidence.
Oh.
And so life itself is based, because we said that the kol ha'chaim yesh bitachon, that all life has confidence. I'll just finish. All life has confidence means that to be alive requires confidence. Okay?
Active and passive confidence are netzach and hod.
Right.
So how does Yesod connect?
They really netzach and hod in this respect. They're like, in a certain sense, even though they feed into Yesod, they also are an expression of Yesod. Okay, that requires a little bit more explanation that we're not going to get into right now. We might get into it a little bit later. Okay, but as a rule, the simplest way to see it is just to say that the three of them work together. So we have Netzach, Hod, and Yesod working together. Okay. So now we're going to see something new. The Zohar said, we began this last time. I'll read the third paragraph of the Zohar. For in Ka'avayas, the everlasting rock, refers to a concealed and hidden place. About this place it says, trust in Havaya unto forever. Unto this point, every person has permission to gaze at it. From this point on, a person does not have permission to gaze at it, for it is hidden from all. So, up to the point of the revealed worlds, you have to have confidence. Beyond that, you have to go to something higher. What does this mean? What is the Zohar trying to say? So he's saying, you have to look at the world, to properly function in the world, you have to look at what you understand and what you don't understand. A person has to be very frank with themselves. What do I understand about? What do I have a knack with? And what do I not understand? If there's something that I don't understand how it runs, how it functions, how it works, it's not in my realm of responsibility. I don't have to fulfill myself in that realm. It's not for me. People see other people doing things and having success in them, and they begin to feel cheated. They begin to have kina, jealous. Because they say, I could do that. Why am I not successful in those things? So he's saying, really, in a moment he'll say that there are archetypes for this, but I'm right away saying this about each and every one of us. Each one of us has these archetypes in us. There's a part of me that understands about certain things. I know I understand about it. I know how they work. I know how you do them. Whether it's because somebody took me through the motions, whether it's somebody taught me, whether it's just I have an inner sense of how it works. It doesn't matter. In those things, I need to have life and confidence. My life will depend on my confidence, meaning on my ability to work something out in that area. It's up to me. Hashem is saying to me, look, in these areas, I gave you the knowledge, I gave you the chush, I gave you even physical pleasure in it. You take pleasure from these areas of life because I want you to lead the way there. That's your realm of responsibility. You will fulfill your life by pursuing these areas. Whatever is outside that realm for you is hidden. It's not to say that sometimes things don't move from the hidden to the revealed. Let's say, I don't know anything about politics. Somebody wants to sell a newspaper, or somebody wants to sell something else, so they tell me I understand. Right? And everybody understands, right? Everybody understands about politics. Nonsense. Most of us don't understand. We think we know. We don't know what's really going on. We don't know what really the dealings are and how it works. I know for a fact that I wouldn't last a day in the political world. Why? Because the amount of disgusting speech and actions that go on there, I'm too gentle for it. I would break apart in 2 minutes. I wouldn't be able to take it. So I don't really understand how this works. I mean, I think I know because I imagine, but my imagination is not well used trying to imagine what it's like to be a politician because I don't really understand what it's like. On the other hand, I know a lot about book production. I know a ton about writing. So comes Hashem and says, look, I taught you these things. Why did I teach you these things? Why did you have a good teacher? I mentioned his name, Mr. King in 10th grade. Alav Shalom. He wasn't a Jew, he was a very interesting man. And he taught me like nobody, I don't think they teach this way in the best writing SEMS programs in America. I mean, he taught in a way that was unreal to 10th graders. And everybody who came out of his class...
What's an example of being taught right?
First of all, production. Produce, write, all the time.
Well, college...
Every single day you had to write an essay.
Mm. Wow.
And that for a 10th grader is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I lost a lot of that stamina. But he forced us to write all that. He didn't care if it was a page or 2 or 10. But you had to produce something every single day. That was a ground rule.
Was class every day or once a week?
And there was class every day. It's the American system, which actually works. It's not like the Israeli system. Thankfully, in yeshivas, they at least learn Gemara every day. In yeshiva, it's like the American system. You do the same thing every day. That makes all the world of a difference because you can't. The school system in Israel is just I like to call it a work service for the teachers. It's got nothing to do with education, or very little. Sorry for all the people who feel that it's such an important thing and achieves so much. I think it achieves very little compared to the amount of money that's thrown at it. But getting to the point, so why did I look at my life and say, why did I have this guy in my life in 10th grade? Me, a kid from Ramat Gan, there was no connection. I didn't know how to write in English before I came to America in 9th grade. And then suddenly I'm in this special class, honors English, whatever it was called. And I've got this crazy teacher who was like, but he wasn't crazy. He explained everything and he taught and he worked on everything.
Was he from America? Did he get that?
He's American. James Todd King was his name. And he's one of the few teachers. I mean, I don't know how many there are. There's a whole group on Facebook, which is pretty big. It's about 1,000 students it is. Wow. He was Nifter probably 9 years ago. But that group has been around forever. And people still, still talk about it, and what we had. It was an experience. It was something very, very unique. So you got this guy teaching you so much and teaching things that nobody ever taught me afterwards at the level that he did about writing. And then you go into the world and you say, wait a minute, I know something about this. So here, since I have the tools, I have the understanding, I have some understanding of the workflow of how it works, what you're supposed to produce in the end, what makes something good, what makes it not so good, how to fix it, how to go through the process. I've been watching, I don't remember what his name is. He's the most published author in America now. He writes nonsense books, like Along Came a Spider, and I don't remember what his name is, James something, I think. Patterson, yeah. So he's wealthy beyond the, he's past Korach a long time ago. And so he put on, he has a YouTube channel. Jordan Peterson. No, it's not Jordan Peterson. It's Patterson.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson is probably the best known, call it, philosopher today, even though he's a psychologist. By the way, we've talked a lot about that from a guy called James Reed. I don't want to get back into that right now, about the connection between philosophy and psychology. But so Patterson has this free master class. It's like master classes that you see everywhere when you go on Facebook or whatever, that all these great people want to teach you their craft. So he doesn't need master class. He doesn't need to get a buck for each person that signs up. He has so much money, he doesn't need it. So he said, I'm going to put on my own thing. It's not long. Really, you don't need much more than that. It's like 20 minutes. And you watch how he writes. He explains his whole process. He divided it into 13 parts. Who knows why. And you watch it, and as I was watching it, I'm saying, I've known this since 10th grade. The only part that's missing is my tuchus stuck to the chair to actually write it. But I've known this whole process for all my life. I was taught by James Todd King how to do this when I was 14.
It's the same thing with anybody when they come across it in the, given to you on Facebook. I know that. But you ain't doing it.
But I ain't doing it. That's all.
Not you.
But I know the process.
Yeah.
I know how it works. I know all the. But I know more than what he teaches. A lot more, because I was taught a lot more. Not because I'm so smart, so the ability to then create life in that area is now up to my confidence. My ability to actually go through the motions, and that's what the foundation does. Foundation is the faculty in the psyche that allows me to create a plan and to actually execute it. More importantly, to execute it, to stick by it. And that's why it's called Midat HaEmet. Midat HaEmet means to fulfill my promises. If I promise myself I'm going to do such and such a thing, I will do it, I'll carry it through. That's what foundation means. And says the Zohar, you can only use bitachon, you can only use confidence in those areas that by you are revealed. Don't try to build something, a plan, an order of work, whatever it is, or promise yourself things about something that you don't yet understand, that you don't yet have a feel for. And there's a reason why we use the word feeling, because the Zohar here is calling it Zah, really. It's calling it Zeir Anpin. Zeir Anpin is a partzuf. It's the principle that governs the emotions. So it's not emotions in the sense of love and hate, as much as it's an intuitive feel.
Is it like a sense, a felt sense?
Yeah, it's a felt sense. It's a feel that you have for this subject matter. In that area, life depends on your foundation. It depends on your faculty of yesod, on your ability to carry something through by making the plan and sticking to it. And that's how you have to work there. But says the Zohar, there are areas in which you don't understand. So now the Zohar gives an example of this. And he says,
What line are you up to?
In Hebrew it's line 40, it started on 400, in the English it's 414, so let's read it again. For in Ka Havaya is the everlasting rock. Ka Havaya here means, we said this is the only time, as far as I remember in the Tanakh, that these two names come together, Yud Kei and Havaya. And by him, there, in that place which is the concealed, there God Himself is the everlasting rock. It's not up to you. Don't fool yourself and say, I can take God's place in those realms. Which, again, it becomes a very personal issue about whether you understand or don't understand a particular area. Each person is different. The examples that the Zohar gives, it doesn't really give it here, the commentaries on the Zohar give it, are Moshe and Yaakov. Moshe Rabbeinu and Jacob. And they're examples of people who did not understand in certain things, but they're the archetypes, where for them to do a certain thing was impossible. So what they had to do was simply rely on Hashem. To rely. A new word.
To rely on Hashem.
Yeah.
What's the
But then it wasn't a
Chisayon, lachasot.
Is to rely?
Lachasot b'Hashem. Lachasot b'Hashem is to rely on Hashem.
The samach?
Right. Chet samach yud
I don't think
vav
they
nun.
were the archetypes to rely on Hashem. They're the archetypes for that thing.
Right. We'll see in a
I don't
moment for
that's
what.
what. Yeah. That's what.
Archetypes of what they
We'll see in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. They had two things. Each one of them
Thank
did it in a certain area. And those areas, you could say, they didn't know how to do things. So you also have to know how to have emunah. But emunah is, I'm not faced with this area yet. I just have in general a general feeling, a general sense of faith that everything's fine. Chisayon, to rely, means that you're already confronted with something that you don't understand enough about. That it's not just to say, here we're getting into a very important difference between faith and confidence. How faith is different than passive confidence. Passive confidence says, really, I understand what needs to happen, I just don't have the tools to do it. I know what needs to happen. It's like, what would be passive confidence? It's a general going to a battle and saying, I don't have the number of soldiers or the equipment to win this battle.
So I'll go to sleep.
So I'll go to sleep. Why? Because I can't do it. I know what needs to happen.
That's
I just
relying
can't
on
do
Hashem.
that. I understand fully what needs to happen. I'm very well aware. So that becomes passive confidence, where I have to say, Hashem will finish things the way I understand them, because I have an understanding in it. I know what needs to happen here. Emunah is when I don't have an understanding. When I don't have an inkling about what would need to happen for this situation to resolve itself. I have no idea. I don't know what the process is. So then I go into relying on Hashem, because there's already a situation at hand. It's not just emunah. Emunah is a general feeling that everything is in Hashem's hands, everything's good. It's all good. But to rely on Hashem is already a different feeling, that I'm faced now with something that is really a problem for me, but I have no tools at all to even begin to analyze it. And so now I have to rely on Hashem that somehow everything will be okay.
And with the passive confidence, you don't rely on it?
I also rely on Hashem, but it's not relying on Hashem. It's passive confidence, because I understand fully what needs to happen. It's just that I don't have the tools for it.
But so it's still
So Hashem has to fill in the tools. But there I have a picture of what needs to happen. When I rely on Hashem, I don't have a picture of what needs to happen. I have no clue what
What
needs
was
to happen.
Esther's position?
I didn't think about that. So that goes into a whole question of what it means that Revach v'atzala ya'amod la'Yehudim mimakom acher. That Mordechai said that to her. And Pshischa has a very interesting analysis of that. He says it's a whole question. The Ibn Ezra asks this question on last week's parsha. Vayifga b'makom. How can you say makom is a Shem? Because it says Revach v'atzala ya'amod la'Yehudim mimakom acher. There'll be another place when we say there's another Hashem. You can't say that. So Pshischa says, Rebunim, he says that what what this means is that a person has to tap into their being part of Hashem. I'm saying it in the easiest language I can. A person has to see that through them will unfold what needs to happen. That's how he describes it.
This is how he describes passive confidence?
So then the question would become, is this passive confidence or is this faith? So my first intuition is that this has to do with faith, not with passive confidence.
That through, the person feels through me.
It will unfold through me, but I don't know yet. I'm not aware myself. It's through my unconscious. I'm not aware myself of what the process is going to be. So my first inclination is to say that this is more like relying on God.
That's how you're describing it.
That I don't know. I mean, I know I have to be there. I have no clue what I'm going to do.
Maybe just
Because I don't have a process in mind. I don't have any kind of understanding of what I might contribute to the resolution of this problem. So that would be like relying on God. I can't run away from it because it's here. So I have to rely on Hashem in the sense of somehow have faith that if it presented itself to you, you're party to this in some way. You don't know how. Because really, I have no idea how this is going to resolve. But passive confidence is I know exactly what needs to happen here. I just can't do it. So I do work through the plan. I do think it through. When Chizkiyahu went to sleep, he went to sleep. How could he go to sleep? Apparently, he was working out what needed to happen in his mind. He fell asleep.
Yeah.
But he had a plan. It's just I don't know. I don't have anybody who can execute that plan, but it's a good plan.
Passive confidence.
That's passive confidence. So again, Yaakov and Moshe Rabbeinu, they represent two people who the Torah tells us that they're suddenly confronted with a situation from which they can do only one thing. What's that one thing? Flee. They run away from it.
Wait.
They can't run away from the situation. The situation's after them. What it means that they ran away is that they didn't exercise their foundation. Foundation would be like the stand. And they ran away from
Who
that.
ran away?
Yaakov and Moshe Rabbeinu. It's 2 times it says in the Torah, Vayivrach, that somebody fled. There's other...
It's like Yosef fled also.
Ken, but there it's not Vayivrach.
No,
Not Yosef, but Ki Varach. There's Varach in other places. But Vayivrach, that he fled, is only by Yaakov and Moshe. Okay, so let's read this.
They're the archetypes of
They're the
fleeing.
archetypes of the things that I don't understand, and then I have to flee from them, which doesn't mean that I can somehow escape.
Because you're not ready to work on it yet?
I have no understanding about it. It's not in.
What are the
I have no
archetypes?
sense. I have no feeling about these things.
What are the archetypes
Okay,
then of-
so let's see.
Oh, okay, but of fleeing.
So the second. So let's read it again. 420. Yeah. Let's read again the section in the Zohar.
Okay.
For in Ka Havai is the everlasting rock. So when you reach Ka, Yud-K, the concealed, then God is the everlasting rock. It's not you anymore. You can't count on yourself. And it refers to a concealed and hidden place. About this, it says, trust in Havaya unto forever. So there you have to trust Hashem. It's not like we said in the beginning. What was beginning? The beginning was trust unto Havaya, meaning Havaya there was what you have feeling in, what you have a sense of. And then it's adei ad, it's to get all the way down to foundation. Here he's saying, no. Ki beka Havaya tzur lamim, the everlasting rock is Havaya, is when you don't have a sense about it, when you don't have any feeling about it. So then, unto this point, every person has permission to gaze at it. Meaning, every person has permission, every person is given permission before the soul comes down into the world to deal with certain things in the world. What you have permission for, you'll be able to deal with. What you don't have permission for, you can't look at it. Meaning, you'll never understand it as much as you look at it. Doesn't mean that at a certain point in time you won't be given permission. But as long as you don't have permission, it's called the scope of your soul. What you've been sanctioned to actually do, what your mission in life is. So as long as it's not part of your mission, you can't look at it. You can look at it all you want, you won't see anything. You'll see wrong things. And you have to be very careful in life not to be mistaken about what your mission is about and what it's not about. And this is a clear sign that it has a lot to do with what you have a chush in, what you have a sense in. If you don't have a sense in something, don't bother with it. In that sense, it's like the Rebbe used to say this a lot, that if it's something you don't understand in, just have faith in Hashem. Don't try to, what are you turning it around in your head a million times for? That would be the difference between somebody who has faith and doesn't have faith. Somebody who doesn't have faith. So he says, it's still, again, it's not that he doesn't have faith. He's mistaken it. He's making a mistake, and he's thinking that somehow I have to have confidence here. Even passive confidence, to know what's supposed to happen. I'll give you an example. Say somebody needs an operation. So there's two types of people. There's somebody who understands how operations work and somebody who doesn't. In any case, whether you understand or you don't, you can't operate on yourself. So the only question then becomes, is it passive confidence or is it faith? If you understand how the operation is supposed to work, so before you go down under with the anesthesia, you can work it out in your head. This is what the doctor's supposed to do. Hashem, I trust you that you'll be in the doctor's hand and it'll work fine. And that's what Hashem wants from you, because you understand. But if you don't understand, I don't know. I have no idea what you're supposed to do, doctor. So I just have faith. It's a big difference. But if you understand, you have to have passive confidence. You can't get away with just having faith. Something that you understand about, but Hashem has taken away, for whatever reason, your ability to act there. You don't have the tools, you can't do it yourself, it doesn't matter what. You're required to have passive confidence. You're required, because Hashem is telling you, whatever you think of, that's what will happen. I brought you into the world to think about this.
So is it trach good? Is it simply
Yeah,
trach good?
that
Passive
means
confidence.
that's exactly what passive confidence is. If you can think about it, then it's passive confidence. But again, don't make the mistake of saying, I'm imagining it, and that's called thinking about it. It's not the same thing. If I don't understand about these things, it's not called thinking about it. I have to have some understanding. If I don't have understanding, fine. Then trach good and zayin good means just imagine everything will be fine. That's all. That's what Hashem wants from you. But if you know how to, even if you cannot contribute yourself for whatever reason, your mind is still required, because that also counts for something. Okay, so getting back to here. Unto this point, every person has permission to gaze at it. Whatever I have permission, I have to gaze at. It's not just that I have permission. I have permission, therefore I have to gaze at it. And then go to confidence. And from this point on, a person does not have permission to gaze at it, for it is hidden from all. But there are places in my life that I have no permission, meaning I'm not sanctioned to go in there. My mission in this world does not include that area. So if I go into it, what's going to happen? I'm just going to worry myself to death. I have nothing to do with it. I don't even understand how it works. It's just going to be a bunch of imagination. It's going to drive me crazy.
What would be an example?
Well, I gave the example of politics, which drives most people crazy. I don't think I'm the only one. And everybody thinks they understand how it works. And it's just meant to sell newspapers in the end, really.
Is a more practical thing of my mission is not to go there, to recognize it?
Every person knows where their limitations are. The places where they drive themselves crazy over something that not that they don't have any control over, but they don't even understand. If they don't have any control, that's passive confidence. Sometimes I don't have control. But Hashem wants me to imagine what the good outcome will be. Okay? And who is it? Who is this place that is concealed? So he says, from where it's called Kahavaya, from where all worlds are drawn, and there is no one who can fathom that place. Again, the Zohar, the language is always universal. So when we get into psychology, when we translate the Zohar into psychology, we have to particularize. So whatever for me is something that I can't look at, that's called that no one can look there. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only one that's looking. I don't know where everybody else is. I don't know what you guys are looking at right now. In any case. So now he writes, the place that is the basis and the connection of all is the sphere of foundation. This we read last time. The sphere into which all lights of the emotive and habitual faculties of emanation flow. Everything that we have a sense about. It also connects the supernal mother principle with the lower mother principle. And by doing so, connects the light of the infinite with the three lower worlds. Creation, formation, actions is actually all of the last few days Tanya. And this is a big topic. Interestingly, somebody asked me about the third eye a few days ago, and I went looking for it in my emails with Rav Ginsburg, and suddenly I saw that he had asked me a few years ago to write about it, but at the time this was for me a no-starter because I didn't understand the whole sugya of what he was talking about. So this is called the 15 contact points of foundation. It's a whole sugya in Kabbalah, and actually, amazingly, if you look at the Sichos, the Rebbe's Sichos, the ones that the Rebbe edited, so on Toldos in volume 5, he has a whole thing about these 15 contact points. He explains it.
15
Contact points of foundation. It's the whole thing. That's why it's Kahavaya. That even though it's foundation, it's related to the Yud K also. We're not going to get into that. I was just saying that as an aside, or maybe one day when I see this again, I'll remember that the sugya is related. When people talk about the third eye, what they mean to say, they don't say it because it's all taken from Tuma. It's all taken from the East, from this thing called chakras, which is, if you read it the right way, it's chakra. What does chakra mean?
Lies.
Lies. It's all lies.
Yeah.
Not because it could be incorrect, but because in the end it's serving the ego. As much as they call it that this is not, it's all about the ego. So there, the third eye, what it means, the third eye is one of the contact points, it's here, of foundation. And what it means to say is that you have an inner way of looking at things. It's not just the way that you see things regularly, which would be that you understand them in the regular sense, but you have an inner insight into it, what we call insight. That's really what the whole third eye is. It's just saying that in between my eyes is like another eye, but it's in the forehead. It's not here in the nose. Why is it in the forehead? So that requires a lot of explanation. But the short version of it is that it has to do with your willpower. That the things that you really want, you have insight into. And this all has to do with what you can see, with what you do understand, with what you need confidence for. So especially if you have insight into an area, you need to work in that area. And that area will develop, it will become part of your life, depending on how much confidence you have in yourself and in Hashem, that this is your mission in life. And depending on how much you can harness the willpower that comes from that being your mission, to really using that to serve Hashem. So it's a question of whether you have insight. That's really what the third eye is talking about, and it's one of these foundations, if you want. And it is the secret of the righteous individual, is the foundation of the world, also meaning eternity. Meaning that the foundation in myself is the basis upon which what people call their legacy in the world is based. When you say world, again, the Zohar and the prophets are universal, so they talk in universal language. When you particularize it or individualize it to each one of us, it means that my world my life, what I will build in this lifetime, is dependent on my foundation. And by the way, that's the reason why masturbation is seen as such a grave sin in the Zohar. Because you're hurting the source of all your foundation. You're tearing apart your ability to fulfill your life. So for the Zohar, that's killing yourself. That's mamish committing murder on the spiritual plane. It's not you're not killing anybody, but you're killing yourself. You're killing your attachment to your mission. You're not letting yourself be true to yourself. That's as an aside. That's how it's explained in Chassidus. The whole Inyan with Shvichat Zera Levatala. So now he continues. What this means is that confidence depends on having a true connection to the true tzaddik of the generation. So here we talked about that last week. The second place the Zohar is speaking about, the concealed and hidden place, which we said again, refers in each of us to those things that we don't have a feel for, we don't have insight into. Refers to the supernal father and mother and the intellectual powers in the world of emanation. What the Zohar is stating is that the confidence that God will fulfill one's needs is relevant only when one has a feeling of holy being inherent in the supernal motive and habitual faculties. Only when you have a holy sense of what needs to be done here. That's where you need to exercise confidence. And in that place, Hashem says to you, walk before me. You be the being. You create the world. I'm sharing my powers of creation with you. That's why the foundation is also called the source of the infinite power. This sense of being can be likened to the feeling one has about the love that one's true friend has for him. Confidence is then what one feels after one has heard a promise from that true friend. Confidence and trust is like, I feel comfortable here in this place. A lot of people try to invest themselves. That's one example of where people fail at this. So they say, why should I give my money to a trust, to some hedge fund or whatever, and let them make 20% and I only make 5%, or let them make 70% and I make 10%. I can do the same thing they can do myself. I know how to do this. I know how it works. So it could be that they do. And then they can have their own hedge fund. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's much more common that you'll just lose everything. You have to know what you're doing. Not everybody knows what they're doing. Meaning not everybody feels comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable somewhere, probably better to wait until you feel comfortable. It's not to say that you can't learn and become comfortable in things. Nobody was born, or almost nobody was born comfortable in what they're doing. A guy who tries to do it yourself with his car. And he says, what's the worst that can happen? There's a lot that can happen. If you're not comfortable, you could kill yourself if you don't know what you're doing. The car can fall on you. If you need to get under and you don't know how to... I mean, it depends if you have a sense for it, you have a feel for it, you feel comfortable with it or not. So he says, it's the same way with... If you have somebody who's a very good friend, you feel comfortable with him. That's what trust means. That I know that even if things don't work out exactly the way we think it, he'll still be my friend. He's still with me. What's the first example of that? Parents. That a person feels, supposed to feel with their parents, that regardless of what happens, I'm always going to be comfortable at home. That's what's supposed to happen. That gives you a sense of what confidence means. Do you feel that way with what you're doing, that regardless of what will happen, it's okay? In the sense that you can nobody's going to kick you out, you're not going to lose everything? What does it mean with parents? I can fight with them. I can even say things I shouldn't say. But the role of the parent is to come and say, regardless of what you said or what you did, you're never going to be kicked out from here. Meaning you can really mess up, but you can have trust and confidence that this is the place where you will always belong. So the Zohar is using that, in a sense, to explain where you should work with confidence. In those places where you feel that even if I lose, I can come back. There's always a comeback. So if I go back to Churchill's famous statement, his definition for success, to go from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm. That you can only do in a place that you're comfortable. Because Churchill was a born politician, I guess, it was very natural to him. So he can't be thrown out because that's where he lives. It's his life. I mean, the politics goes with him. Throw me out, it will just come with me wherever I go. So, right, of course I can fail here. I can fail 100 times. A mechanic also makes a lot of mistakes. A guy who's a shiputznik who fixes, they also make tons of mistakes. But it's not such a big deal. They fix it. They can't fix it, they'll redo it. But they're not going to be like me, ruining the house. Again, if I start doing something and I don't know what I'm doing, what's the worst that can happen? It can get pretty bad. You can ruin your whole, installation, all the piping and the electricity, and go fix it. And that's what people say. What one idiot destroys, 1,000 smart people can't put back together again. Because if you have no sense about it, don't touch it. It's better to leave it alone. For you, that's a hidden place. Don't try to make a plan.
Are there people that have so much like faith or yesod that they will take on other things? Like one, like, I'll be the professor, I'll be the doctor, I'll be.
Right. What is that? That's over self-confidence. They could kill people. They're the people you got to be scared of. Unless it really is what they. When you have somebody who has good hands, who knows how to fix things, it's fine to give them whatever you give them. It's gonna be okay. It may take longer, it may take a little bit more, but it'll work out. You won't get it back in pieces. But if you take somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and you give them even something simple to fix, you'll get back pieces that are unfixable. So you got to be careful what you're doing, and you've got to know your own limitations in that sense. But you have to know that in the places where I do have a feel, where I do have insight, Hashem is telling you, run. Meaning, run before me, walk before me, lead the way. I'm with you. Just go and do it. And that's what Nike means by just do it. They don't mean just do it everywhere, because there's a lot of places where you go and do it, and you're not going to come back from it. So what did we do? We didn't do anything. But in the places where you do have that feel, even if you're not yet the best at it, you're not even very good, but you have a feel for it. So it's up to you now to build the plan and to actually carry it out. And in those places where you don't understand, leave it to Hashem. And that's harder a lot of times. A lot harder. Because for a person to be true to themselves and say, that's also what foundation as truth means. It means true to yourself. Not to fool myself and to know what is relevant for me, what is it within my scope, within my sanction, within the part of the world that God gave my soul, is much harder than just to say everything is in my scope.
So this amuna of again, it's relying on Hashem. It's also trach, so they're both trach.
There's that, but there it's like what we started with the question you started before the class about what is the role of imagination. Imagination is an amuna, because there I can only imagine something. Right? Meaning, if I imagine a good outcome to something I don't understand anything about, I might be off. I might not even understand what a good outcome means.
So therefore,
So it's just an imagination. It's just an image that I have. To tracht good means that I know what a good outcome looks like. I understand the process. It's just that I can't carry it out. I don't have the tools right now. So there are two different levels. One is in what I am responsible for, what I do have authority over, and so on, what is relevant to my life. There I have to think, even if I can't do. But when it comes to things that are not within my scope, there I can only imagine. And there the imagination is serving my faith.
if you can't visualize anything, what do you imagine?
Well, you imagine whatever outcome you want, but we're calling it imagination because it's not necessarily grounded in any kind of reality. You can really let your imagination run wild because it's not grounded to anything. I don't know what it looks like when I don't know what it looks in terms of investing, let's say. So I don't know what a good investment looks like. So somebody who knows how to invest says, wow, 6% and you got it like this and that, that's really good. My imagination runs wild, so what do I say? 6%? That doesn't sound to me like a very good investment. 80%. Okay. And somebody who hears me, who understands about investing, says, okay, keep imagining whatever you want. It doesn't exist in the real world. That's fine for you.
See, I was thinking, like, for me, like, as a practical example would be, so there's a young person that I'm close to that needs to do tshuva. I can't quite
No, but
see
you understand about you. You understand a great deal about you.
But how this person, what will be the steps that
Doesn't
will
matter.
inspire this person?
Doesn't matter.
Because I
You can't see it beforehand, but it's the same thing as like somebody fixing something they don't fully know how it works, but they have good hands, they'll figure it out.
So you're saying that's passive confidence, it's not a moon, it's passive confidence.
I wouldn't even say that it's passive confidence, I think it's active confidence.
That means you're doing something.
There's something you need to do.
But what if you don't know what it is that you need to do?
Okay, if you don't understand even that beginning part, so maybe you're still at passive confidence, but I think you do understand because you know so much. If there's any, I don't know, looking from the side, I would say, if there's anything you understand something about, it's tshuva. You've seen it, so many people go through it, that there's no way that you don't understand about it. Except that you don't have the confidence yet, maybe. Maybe you still haven't found the foundation.
There's a lot of questions. Is it better to say something, not to say something? There's a lot of
100%.
where it's not
There's
clear.
no, knowing the process doesn't mean getting it perfectly right. I'm saying nobody who knows a process has complete control over reality. What they have control over is not giving up. And it makes sense for them to pursue it because they understand something about it. They know what a good outcome even looks like. Somebody who thinks that tshuva means, a lot of people think this, that you put a person in through some system and they come out looking like you, so they've got a problem with what tshuva, I'm not sure they exactly understand the concept. Okay, so there you maybe leave it to faith. Hashem will take care of it, it'll be okay. But if you understand something about the process, then you also know that yes, every time you come to fix a car, it's a little bit different. They're never ever exactly the same. Even it's the same make, same models, everything's the same. Yeah, but this guy drove this way and that guy drove that way, and this spring is off and that one that. It's always a little bit different. So people are much more complex than cars, but the analogy holds. So because you feel comfortable there, you won't drop the pieces. You won't just come and say, oh, you know what? Sorry, I can't help you. And you leave the person in pieces. No, I have no idea how to put himself back together again. That's not going to happen. Because you feel comfortable. You said, I know that part of this is that there are, you know what? Take the car analogy and beat it to death here. When you take your car into the shop, there's stuff they can finish today, there's stuff they know is going to take 5 days. Actually, they don't know how long it's going to take. But the fact that at 4 o'clock they close is not an issue for them. So for the next 20 hours, or I don't know, 18 hours, I'm not going to see the car. That's fine. because everything's going to be where I left it when I come back tomorrow morning. That's part of how they work. So they know where to put all the nuts and bolts, and they know that it's not like me taking something apart in my home and saying, oh, I can't finish it now. I'm sorry I even started, because I know that if I leave it for 2 hours and I come back, I'll have no idea where anything goes. When it comes to tshuva, there are periods of time when the person takes a break. When they come and say, this is not working for me, they go away and it looks like everything's been lost. But if you know the process, that's like the garage closing down for the night. That's all it is. And when they come back, you know where all the pieces are. You know what's going to happen there. You know what it looks like when you come back. So you're not so concerned. It's not to say that you take it all easily. He's talking about a person's life, and so on. But in principle, you understand what the process is. You understand what's going on.
Maybe. I mean, I feel
Okay,
like it's not so clear. I mean, there's some young person that we're very close to that did tshuva after hiking in Switzerland for a month. And then he came after that month, he just was totally inspired. So it's hard to say what will.
And then he's going to go to the Himalayas and hike there, because he's going to go to Nepal, because that's part of the tshuva process nowadays. And then he's going to go to South America and do that there. So it's part of the process today. We know it's part of the process. Why? Because Yiddishkeit is so much more than spirituality, and it's demanding, and it's hard, and people can't just fit into the mold overnight. So they have to take these breaks. We take breaks, right? We take breaks, except our breaks are 5 minutes long. Right? Our breaks are for 5 minutes, there's only Hashem, no mitzvos, nothing, just Hashem, and everything's fine. And I come out of those 5 minutes, and it's like I took a trip to the Himalayas. It's the same thing.
Don't become a travel agent.
Or maybe you should. See, that would be good. Tshuva travel. So I know it's part of the process. So you can buy them. You know, on the off season, and actually make a good. Anyway. So confidence is then what one feels, line 434, after one has heard a promise from that true friend. The friend, of course, is the Almighty. The promise He made me is before I came down into the world. What did they promise me? That I'd be a tzaddik. Mashbi'in, they didn't just promise it. They made me take an oath not to give up on my being a tzaddik. A tzaddik in what? I can't be a tzaddik in everything I do. But there's a certain area, or maybe a few areas in my life where I can be. So for instance, when a person is married, what does it mean to be a tzaddik there? It means to be faithful. It means, well, first of all, it means to carry my duties. It means that even when it's tough and I don't like it and so on and so forth, I still stick with it. Because I am a tzaddik there. I have a foundation there. I'm steadfast. I'm not going anywhere. But, however, souls that are rooted in a higher place, and again, when I started, I already said, how is this relevant to me? Because I also have areas of my soul that are rooted in a higher place. They're not going to come down right now. And so therefore I won't understand these topics right now. I'm not going to understand these parts of the world. It's not for me to fix. So however, souls that are rooted in a higher place, higher than the emotive and habitual faculties and emanations, souls such as Moshe Rabbeinu and Jacob, who are rooted in the supernal father and mother, there I only have what we would call an understanding, but it's not really a sense about how things are. I could read about it even, and I still wouldn't understand it. I don't have an insight into it. I don't have a feel about it. I can read about it. I'm interested in it maybe, but I don't get it. So that's called the supernal father and mother, the intellectual spirit of emanation. They cannot manifest a revealed form of confidence in the affairs of this world. Which world? The world that they don't understand about. Did Moshe Rabbeinu not have confidence in his ability to explain what Torah meant? Of course he did. There he's a tzaddik. And all the prophets in the world take from him, because in prophecy he's the tzaddik. He's the man. There's nobody like him. Even Avraham, in order to reach that's what we began with, Avraham, to reach what he did in Torah, he went through Moshe Rabbeinu's soul. He had to. Because Moshe's the man there. He's the tzaddik. But when it comes to giving the people food, do you know what it's like to put together the logistics of feeding 3 million people? What does Moshe Rabbeinu have anything to do with that? He has nothing to do with that. No connection whatsoever. He doesn't know how that works. So what does he say? Here I'm nothing. Where did he say, I and Aaron were nothing? When they demanded food. He didn't say that when they demanded Torah. When they demanded Torah, he had everything to say. He had everything to give. Oh, you want me to teach you Torah from 6 a.m. till 6 a.m. every day, around the clock, until Jethro comes and says, "You're not going to survive this way. I know you're the man, but there's a limit to what you can carry." But when it comes to feeding them, what does he know about feeding people? So he says, "Me and Aaron, we're nothing here. We're just emissaries." So what does he fall back on? He falls back on his faith. And his faith is so great that it creates the man. It creates the
Is that what happened? His faith created the man?
No, there Hashem already told him, but when it came to the, what do you call them? The slab, what do you say slab? The quail. The quail was created through Moshe's faith.
I was going to say that sometimes it's not so passive when the Zushalite think tov yeh tov.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that a form of
So we said that usually that's when you do understand. So that would be like passive confidence. Here Moshe Rabbeinu had no clue what it meant to give meat to everybody. So he couldn't even imagine what it would look like. So it turned out to be quail, but he had no picture of quail in his head.
Still sounds like passive confidence.
Why?
He didn't leave the job.
Because he has another job to do. But he gives up on this. He says, it's up to Hashem. Hashem wants to give you, he'll give you. But you understand about, what did he say to them? You definitely have an understanding, you, the people. You understand about Parnassa. You were in Egypt for 210 years, you worked. So you know something about livelihood. So you should have confidence, you should picture what you want, that this is what Hashem will give you. And it's fine. The fact that you asked for food means that you have a picture that food is necessary, you have to bring it, you have to raise it, you have to make it, you have to prepare it, you have to eat it, so on. I don't, food is not an issue for me. Not an issue, I don't care. Not because I don't eat. I eat, like every person. But it just comes, however it comes, I don't know how it comes. I don't understand anything about livelihood. It's not my thing. So you want me to make now some kind of logistical system that's going to ship food in from who knows where into the little desert and feed you? I have no idea what you do. If somebody here knows how to do that, I'm fine with that. I don't know how to do that. I'm making it funny, but in the end, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. I don't understand about these things. I don't have a problem with that. I've never had an issue with food. Not because I don't eat, but because Hashem has always provided for me. I know that He'll provide. You have an issue. That means that you have to do something. So what did they do? What did they have to do? They had to do two things. One was they had to go and gather the men. They had to go gather it. It wasn't.
Once it came
it's
down.
a lot easier than working 7 days a week, or 6 days a week, or 5 days a week. It's a lot easier, theoretically. I don't know how hard it was to gather. They had to go some distance. Each person. That's what the matters. The other thing they had to do was to say, 1 day a week, it's not up to me.
Who told him to do that?
Moshe said, 1 day a week, it's not going to fall down. Don't go out to look for it. Don't go looking for it. Because it's not going to be there. So you also have to have faith. Shabbos is like saying, Shabbos is practicing faith. That not only are the things that I'm not sanctioned to think about and worry about in this world, there are also things in time that time sets apart and says, now don't worry and don't involve yourself in all these things that Hashem says, they're not for you right now. It's not because the rest of the week they aren't. They are the rest of the week. But you practice every week, one day, where you come and say, all these things that I have a knack for, that I have a sense about, I don't, especially think about cooking. Just the cooking part. Everybody has a sense about cooking. Some sense, because it's about how we eat. And to say to yourself, no matter what happens, I'm not going to play with the heat. I'm not going to put anything on heat. I'm not going to do anything. Whatever there is what there is. Hashem will take care of it. That's a big deal for almost everybody. The same way that for most men, not to hear what's happening in the stock market or whatever, not to know what's going on, it's a big deal. So that's what Shabbos does. Shabbos brings you into a state of faith. That here Hashem says no. Okay, so anyway, so those two things, Moshe Rabbeinu left for the people. You take care of it. He didn't go and collect the manna for them. He says, this is not for me. From that I know that, how did Moshe Rabbeinu get his manna? He didn't walk out. He had it already. I don't know how he had it. But again, it was something that he never dealt with. He didn't not deal with it because he was oblivious to it, in the sense that he didn't care as much as it didn't say anything to it. It's like he doesn't see it. There's certain people who are so spiritual that this whole thing of how you live in the world, they don't know. I remember one time, I think I mentioned this, that I was speaking to Rav Fruman, who also passed away, and I tried to ask him about advice about money, which just shows how good my judgment was.
How did you pick him?
What?
How did you pick him to ask?
I didn't just pick him. It was the only person who was right near me, I guess, at that moment. So I asked him a question. The answer I got, I guess, was why I asked him, because from that day on I've been telling this story, which is great. He said to me, money is one of the most spiritual things I've ever encountered.
Oh.
Yeah, right, okay.
Oh.
I know how much you understand about money.
To him.
To him, that's what it is. It doesn't mean anything. It's something spiritual. It falls from heaven. Who knows? He's never worried. He's never balanced his budget. He doesn't care what it looks like. It works out. It's spiritual. What do you want? So this person, you understand, he doesn't have a sense about it. It's not his mandate. He doesn't have to have confidence that he's going to finish the month, as we call it in Israel. He's going to have enough money to pay all his bills, because it's not in his consciousness at all. It's just not for him. It doesn't mean that he doesn't need the money. He needs it like everybody else, just like Moshe Rabbeinu needs to eat. But confidence is not what's going to make it or break it for him. Rather, what's going to help him is faith. He has faith, therefore it's a spiritual thing. Okay, so we'll end here. And God willing, continue next week. Hope to see everybody at 12 o'clock Israel time, 5 in the morning in New York, since everybody's up anyway, have nothing to do, they can come to watch.
Hobby is the time 12 or 12:30 for our big